The deep space scanner on the bridge of Harmony's Edge began beeping with a steady rhythm that made Captain Vex's scales ripple with unease. The sound meant only one thing. They had found something that should not be there. "Report," Vex commanded, his reptilian voice carrying the authority of 20 years in the Galactic Union fleet. His yellow eyes focused on the main screen where dots of light showed the positions of stars and planets in this empty sector of space. "Unknown vessel detected, Captain," replied Officer Kane, a four-armed being from the Tetran system. His multiple hands moved quickly across the control panel. "It's drifting near the boundary of the restricted zone." Captain Vex felt his blood grow cold. The restricted zone meant only one thing. They were close to Earth, the legendary death world that had killed every exploration team ever sent to study it. No ship was supposed to be here. No ship could survive being here. "Distance?" Vex asked, moving closer to the scanner display. 12,000 units and closing," Kane responded. "It appears to be dead in space. No energy signatures, no communications, no movement." Dr. Kale, the ship's science officer, looked up from her research station. Her blue skin had turned pale with worry. "Captain, that's impossible. Nothing survives. In this sector. The radiation from the Death World's sun alone should have destroyed any ship years ago." Vex studied the readings on his screen. The unknown ship was small, much smaller than any proper galactic vessel. Its shape was strange too. Long and narrow with odd bumps and extensions that made no sense to his trained eye. "Bring us closer," he ordered. "But keep our shields at maximum power. If this is some kind of trap, I want to be ready." The Harmony's Edge moved through space like a silver needle, its advanced engines making no sound in the vacuum. As they drew nearer to the mystery ship, more details became clear on their screens. "By the Seven Suns," whispered Kane, his forearms stopping their work. "Look at that thing." The unknown vessel looked like it had been built by children playing with scrap metal. Its hull was made of different materials, welded together in patterns that hurt to look at. Strange symbols covered its surface, symbols that looked primitive and crude compared to the elegant writing systems used by civilized species. "It's so ugly," Dr. Kale said, her scientific mind struggling to understand what she was seeing. "How does it even fly? Those engines are tiny. And what are those? Tubes sticking out everywhere?" Captain Vex had seen many strange things in his years of service, but this ship was different. It radiated an aura of wrongness that made his survival instincts scream warnings. Yet something else about it called to him. A mystery that demanded to be solved. "Run a full scan," he ordered. "I want to know everything about that ship. What it's made of, where it came from, and how long it's been drifting out here." The scanners worked for several minutes, sending invisible beams of energy to probe the mysterious vessel. When the results came back, they made no sense at all. "Captain," Kane said slowly, "according to our readings, that ship is old. Very old. The materials show signs of aging that suggest it's been in space for at least 50 cycles." 50 cycles, Dr. Kale gasped. "Nothing could survive that long in this radiation field. The ship should have been destroyed decades ago." Vex stared at the readings. 50 cycles meant the ship had been drifting near the Death World for longer than most species had known about faster-than-light travel. It was impossible, yet there it was. "What about life signs?" he asked. Kane's hands moved over his controls, again. "That's the strange part, Captain. There are life signs, but they're weak. Very weak. Like something sleeping or in deep stasis." "Stasis pods," Dr. Kale said with excitement. "They must have stasis pods. That would explain how they survived so long." Captain Vex made his decision. "Prepare a boarding party. We're going over there." "Sir," Kane protested, "regulations clearly state that any vessel found near a death world should be destroyed immediately. We're not supposed to make contact." "Those regulations assume the vessel is hostile," Vex replied. "This ship is clearly disabled. If there are survivors aboard, it's our duty to help them." An hour later, Captain Vex floated through the airlock connecting his ship to the mysterious vessel. He wore a full environmental suit, as did the 3 crew members with him. Kane, Dr. Kale, and Security Chief Brix, a massive bear-like creature whose strength was legendary throughout the fleet. The moment they entered the unknown ship, Vex knew they had made a terrible mistake. The corridors were wrong. Everything was wrong. The ceiling was too low, the walls too narrow, and the lighting cast strange shadows that seemed to move when he wasn't looking directly at them. Worse, the artificial gravity was working perfectly, which should have been impossible in a ship this old. By the ancestors, Brix growled, his deep voice muffled by his helmet. This place feels like a tomb. They moved deeper into the ship, their footsteps echoing strangely in the narrow hallways. The walls were covered with more of those primitive symbols, along with images that made no sense. Pictures of creatures that looked like hairless apes standing upright, landscapes that seemed too green and blue to be real, and strange machines that served no obvious purpose. "Captain," Dr. Kale whispered, "look at this." She was standing in front of a wall panel covered with switches and dials. The technology was so primitive it looked like something from a museum, yet it was clearly functional. Small lights blinked, steadily, and a screen showed readouts in those strange symbols. "Can you read any of it?" Vex asked. "The universal translator is trying," she replied. "But these symbols don't match any known language. It's like they developed completely separately from galactic civilization." They continued through the ship, finding room after room of impossible things. Storage areas filled with containers holding substances that their scanners couldn't identify. Equipment that looked like weapons but worked on principles their science couldn't explain. And everywhere, those disturbing images of the hairless ape creatures. Finally, they reached what was clearly the ship's main cargo hold. And there, arranged, in neat rows, were dozens of stasis pods. "Sweet mother of stars," Kane breathed. The pods were active. Each one held a sleeping form, the same hairless, pale creatures they had seen in the images. They looked fragile and weak, with thin limbs and soft skin that seemed like it would tear if touched too roughly. "These must be the ship's passengers," Dr. Kale said, moving closer to examine one of the pods. "But I don't understand. What species are they? They're not in any of our databases." Captain Vex approached the nearest pod and looked down at the sleeping creature inside. It was smaller than him, with a round head covered in thin brown hair. Its face was smooth and unmarked by the scars or natural armor that most intelligent species developed. It looked impossibly young and innocent. "According to the pod's readings," Dr. Kale reported, "this one is still alive. They all are. The stasis systems are working perfectly, despite the ship's age." "But who are they?" Brix rumbled. "And how did they get so close to the death world?" That's when they found the ship's main computer core. It was located in a room that was clearly meant to be the bridge, though it looked nothing like the command centers of proper starships. The computer itself was a massive, primitive thing that filled half the room and hummed with electrical energy. Dr. Kale connected her portable translator to the computer's data ports. For long minutes, nothing happened. Then, slowly, words began to appear on her screen. "I'm getting something," she said excitedly. "The computer's language is similar to the symbols we've been seeing. The translator is starting to make sense of it." More words appeared, then sentences, then entire paragraphs of text. As Dr. Kale read, her blue skin grew paler and paler. "Captain," she whispered, "you need to see this." Vex looked at her screen and felt his scales go cold with fear. The words were simple and clear, translated into perfect galactic standard. "Ship's log. United Earth vessel New Dawn. Day 18, 250 of our journey. Captain Reed reporting. We have traveled far from our dying home in search of a new world where humanity can survive. Our stasis pods are holding well, and we should reach the galactic shipping lanes within the next few cycles. We carry with us the last hope of our species, 847 souls fleeing the environmental collapse of Earth. We do not know what we will find among the stars, but we cannot be worse off than we were at home. Earth has become uninhabitable, and we are the last ship to escape before the final catastrophe. May whatever gods exist in this vast universe have mercy on us, for we are truly alone. The date stamp on the log entry showed it was over 50 cycles old. These creatures, these humans, claimed to be from Earth itself, from the death world that no living being had ever seen and survived. Captain Vex stared at the sleeping forms in their stasis pods and realized that everything the galaxy thought it knew about the universe was about to change forever. Dr. Kale couldn't sleep. For 3 days she had been thinking about the sleeping humans in their strange ship. The other crew members of the Harmony's Edge were scared and wanted to leave the area immediately. But she was a scientist, and her curiosity was stronger than her fear. "We should study them," she told Captain Vex for the 10th time as they stood in his private office. These creatures survived on the Death World. They might know things that could help the entire galaxy. "Captain." Vex looked tired. His yellow eyes were dim and his scales had lost their usual bright color. "Dr. Kale, you know the regulations. Anything from Earth is to be avoided at all costs. We should report this to headquarters and let them decide." "But Captain," Dr. Kale pressed, "think about what we could learn. How did they survive? What makes them different from every other species that died trying to explore that world?" Vex was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he sighed. "What do you want to do?" "Let me study one of their stasis pods," she said quickly. "Just one. I want to understand how their technology works. Maybe we can learn something about their biology too." Against his better judgment, Captain Vex agreed. The next morning, Dr. Kale returned to the human ship with a small team. She had chosen the pod containing the creature with brown hair, the one that had looked so peaceful in its sleep. The pod's control panel was covered with symbols, but her translator had been working on the language for days. She could now understand basic commands and readings. The life signs were strong and steady. The creature inside was healthy and ready to wake up. "Are you sure about this?" asked Kane, who had come with her. His 4 arms were shaking with nervousness. "It's just one," Dr. Kale said, though her own voice was not as confident as she wanted it to be. "We'll wake it up, ask a few questions, and then put it back to sleep if necessary." She pressed what she hoped was the awakening sequence. The pod hummed softly, and warm air began to flow through its systems. Slowly, the transparent cover lifted with a soft hiss. The creature's eyes opened. Dr. Kale had expected many things. She had expected the creature to panic, to scream, to attack, or to cower in fear. What she had not expected was for it to sit up calmly, look around at the alien faces surrounding it and say something in its strange language that sounded almost friendly. "Hello," the creature said, and somehow the translator made the word understandable. "I'm Tom." The simple introduction shocked Dr. Kale more than any scream would have. This creature, this human, was acting like waking up surrounded by alien beings was the most normal thing in the universe. Tom looked at each of them carefully. His eyes were brown like his hair, and they seemed curious rather than afraid. He was smaller than any of them, with soft skin that looked like it had never seen real sunlight. Yet there was something in his posture that made Dr. Kale think of a predator that was simply choosing not to attack. "You're not human," Tom said, and it wasn't a question. "Different species, I'm guessing. How long have we been asleep?" Dr. Kale found her voice. "You've been in stasis for over 50 cycles. We found your ship drifting near the restricted zone." Tom nodded as if this made perfect sense. 50 cycles. That's about right. We were hoping to reach the shipping lanes by now. He looked around. The cargo hold. "Are my people safe?" "They're still sleeping," Kane said nervously. "We only woke you up." "Smart," Tom said with what looked like a smile. "Probably better to test the waters with one person first. I'm guessing you know where we came from?" Dr. Kale nodded slowly. "Your ship's computer said you came from Earth." Something changed in Tom's expression. For just a moment, his friendly demeanor slipped, and Dr. Kale saw something that made her scales crawl. It was like looking into the eyes of a creature that had seen too much death and learned to live with it. "Yeah," Tom said quietly. "We're from Earth. Last ship out before the end." "But that's impossible," Dr. Kale burst out. "Nothing can survive on Earth. It's a death world. Every expedition we've sent there has been destroyed. Tom looked genuinely confused. Death World? Earth's not that bad. I mean, sure, we had some problems with climate change and pollution, but we managed for thousands of years before things got really bad. Kane's forearms were trembling. Not that bad? Your world is classified as the most dangerous planet in known space, really? Tom seemed interested rather than offended. What makes you think that? Dr. Kale pulled up her datapad and showed him the official reports. Every ship that has tried to land on Earth has been destroyed. The radiation levels, the toxic atmosphere, the extreme weather, the hostile life forms, nothing we've sent there has ever returned. Tom studied the reports, his brown eyes moving quickly across the text. Finally, he looked up with that strange smile again. "Oh, I see the problem," he said. "You've been trying to land in the wrong places at the wrong times. Earth's not toxic, well, not everywhere, and the life forms aren't hostile unless you threaten them or act like prey." "Act like prey?" Dr. Kale asked weakly. "Yeah, you know, running around, making noise, acting scared. That attracts predators. You have to move confidently. Show that you belong there." Tom stretched his arms, working out the stiffness from his long sleep. "Earth's got some tough neighborhoods, sure, but it's not impossible to survive there. We did it for millions of years." Dr. Kale felt like her understanding of the universe was crumbling. This small, soft creature was talking about the death world like it was just another planet with some minor inconveniences. "But the reports," she said desperately. "Ships destroyed by massive storms, crews killed by creatures that hunt in packs, entire expeditions wiped out by diseases. Sounds like they weren't prepared," Tom said simply. "Earth's weather can be rough, and yeah, there are some dangerous animals. But you learn to deal with it. You adapt." The word adapt sent a chill through Dr. Kale. In galactic terms, adaptation meant slow evolutionary changes over millions of years. But Tom made it sound like something his species did casually, like changing clothes. "How do you adapt to planet-killing storms?" Kane asked. "You build better shelters. You learn to read the weather signs. You find safe places to wait it out." Tom shrugged. "Sometimes you lose people, but the species survives." "Sometimes you lose people," Dr. Kale repeated numbly. This creature was talking about mass death like it was just part of life. "That's how it works," Tom said gently, as if explaining something obvious to a child. "The strong survive, the weak don't. The smart ones learn from the mistakes of the dead ones. Eventually, you get tough enough to handle whatever the world throws at you." At that moment, alarms began blaring throughout both ships. Captain Vex's voice came through their communication devices. "All crew return to stations immediately. We have multiple ships approaching fast." Tom's expression changed instantly. The friendly, peaceful human was gone, replaced by something that made Dr. Kale's survival instincts scream warnings. His brown eyes became cold and calculating, and his soft body seemed to coil like a spring ready to strike. "Military vessels?" he asked, his voice now carrying an edge that hadn't been there before. "How did you know?" Kane gasped. "The way you're all acting. The panic in your captain's voice. Someone's coming to deal with the problem of humans being alive." Tom stood up smoothly, and Dr. Kale noticed that despite his smaller size, he moved with a fluid grace that suggested deadly competence. "I should wake up my people." "Wait," Dr. Kale said. "Maybe we can talk to them. Explain that you're peaceful." Tom looked at her with something that might have been pity. "Dr. Kale, right? You seem like a good person. But you need to understand something about humans. We've been dealing with extinction events for our entire existence. Ice ages, asteroid impacts, supervolcanic eruptions, plagues that killed 92% of our population. We've survived them all." He moved toward the other stasis pods, his hands working confidently on the control panels. "And you know what we learned from all that death and destruction?" Tom continued as the first pod began its awakening cycle. "We learned that when someone comes to kill you, you don't try to reason with them. You make sure they regret the attempt." More pods began opening, and Dr. Kale watched in growing horror as humans began to wake up. Each one sat up calmly, assessed, The situation quickly and immediately began moving with the same deadly purpose she had seen in Tom. A woman with short black hair looked at the aliens and asked, "Status?" "Possible hostile contact incoming," Tom replied. "Unknown number of ships, probably military." The woman nodded. "Wake everyone, full alert." "Already on it, Captain Reed." Dr. Kale realized she was looking at a species that had been forged in the fires of the deadliest world in the galaxy. And now, surrounded by potential enemies in the depths of space, they were showing their true nature. As more humans awakened and began preparing for whatever was coming, Dr. Kale understood with crystal clarity why every expedition to Earth had failed. It wasn't because the planet was too dangerous for life to survive. It was because it was the perfect place to create the most dangerous life in the universe. Captain Reed stood in the cargo hold of the New Dawn, watching as her people finished waking up from their long sleep. She was tall for a human, with short black hair and scars on her hands that spoke of a hard life. Her brown eyes moved constantly, taking in every detail of their situation. "Report," she said to Tom, who had become her unofficial liaison with the aliens. "We're in deep space, 53 years from Earth," Tom replied. "These people found us drifting near what they call a restricted zone. They seem friendly, but there are military ships coming." Reed nodded and turned to Dr. Kale, who was still standing nervously near the stasis pods. "You're the scientist who woke us up?" "Yes," Dr. Kale managed to say. "I'm Dr. Kale of the Galactic Union research vessel Harmony's Edge." "Galactic Union," Reed repeated thoughtfully. "So there's a whole government out here, that's good to know." She paused. "Tom says you think Earth is some kind of death trap." Dr. Kale's blue skin had gone pale. "It's classified as a Class 3 death world, the most dangerous planet we know of. Nothing survives there." Captain Reed smiled, but it wasn't a happy expression. "Dr. Kale, would you like to see what Earth is really like?" Before Dr. Kale could answer, Reed was leading her toward the ship's data storage room. The other humans followed, moving with a quiet efficiency that made Dr. Kale's nerves crawl. These creatures looked so fragile, yet they moved like a pack of predators. The data room was small and cramped, filled with primitive computers and storage devices. Reed activated a large screen and began pulling up files. "This is Earth," she said as images appeared on the screen. Dr. Kale gasped. She was looking at a world of impossible beauty, blue oceans that sparkled in sunlight, green continents covered with plant life, white clouds that looked soft and peaceful. It was nothing like the toxic wasteland described in the galactic records. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "It was," Reed agreed. "But Earth doesn't stay beautiful for long. Watch this." The image changed to show massive storms with winds that could tear apart buildings, lightning strikes that could power entire cities, tornadoes that moved across the landscape like hungry monsters, destroying everything in their path. "This is what we call Tuesday weather in Kansas," Reed said casually. Dr. Kale watched in horror as the storms raged across the continent. "How do you survive that?" "Underground shelters, early warning systems. You learn to read the signs." Reed pulled up another file. "This is winter in Siberia." The screen showed a landscape of pure white that stretched to the horizon. The temperature reading made Dr. Kale's blood freeze. It was cold enough to kill most known life forms in minutes. "We lived there for thousands of years," Reed said. "You adapt. Better clothing, better heating, better food storage. The weak die, the strong get stronger." More images flashed across the screen. Deserts where the heat could cook metal. Jungles where every plant and animal was trying to kill you. Oceans with storms that could sink ships the size of small cities. "This is just the weather," Reed continued. "Then there are the animals." Dr. Kale watched in growing terror as the screen showed creatures that looked like living nightmares. Massive predators with teeth like swords. Pack hunters that could run for days without stopping. Tiny creatures with poison that could kill in seconds. "That's a grizzly bear," Reed said, pointing to a brown mountain of muscle and claws. "They can weigh 800 pounds and run faster than most galactic vehicles. We used to hunt them for food. You hunted those things? Kane asked, his forearms shaking. Had to. They were hunting us. Reed pulled up more files. This is a great white shark, 20 feet long, 3,000 pounds of pure killing machine. Some humans swim with them for fun. Dr. Kale felt sick. For fun? Adrenaline rush, Tom explained. Humans like danger. It makes us feel alive. The images kept coming. Poisonous snakes that could kill with a single bite. Spiders the size of dinner plates. Insects that carried diseases that could wipe out entire populations. But those are just the normal animals, Reed said. Then there are the really dangerous ones. She showed them footage of something that looked like a nightmare-given form, a creature with multiple heads, each one filled with razor-sharp teeth. It moved through water like liquid death, hunting prey with intelligence that was clearly beyond simple animal instinct. Saltwater crocodile, Reed said matter-of-factly. Been around since the dinosaurs. Hasn't changed much because it's already perfect at what it does, killing things. Dinosaurs? Dr. Kale asked weakly. Reed grinned, and for the first time Dr. Kale saw genuine joy in her expression. Oh, you'll love this. The screen filled with images of creatures that defied belief. Reptiles the size of buildings, with teeth like spears, and claws that could tear through steel. Flying monsters with wingspans that could cover entire landing pads. Herbivores that were basically living tanks, covered in armor and spikes. These ruled Earth for over 160 million years, Reed explained. Then a rock the size of a mountain hit the planet and killed most of them. The ones that survived turned into birds. Dr. Kale looked at the small feathered creature on the screen. That's a bird? Descendant of the T-Rex, Reed said proudly. We keep them as pets now. The images shifted to show human cities. But these weren't the primitive settlements Dr. Kale had expected. They were massive constructions of metal and glass, reaching into the sky like fingers grasping for the stars. We built these while dealing with everything I just showed you, Reed said. Storms, predators, diseases, natural disasters, just part of daily life. You adapt or you die. But the expedition reports, Dr. Kale protested. Every ship that tried to land on Earth was destroyed. Reed's expression grew serious. What did these expeditions do when they landed? Standard first contact protocols, Dr. Kale replied. Land in open areas, establish communication, try to make contact with local life forms. And they came in. Ships? Of course. How else would they travel between stars? Reed exchanged a look with Tom. Dr. Kale, let me ask you something. If you saw a strange object fall from the sky and land on your world, what would you assume it was? A ship? Exactly. And if strange creatures came out of it? Creatures that looked nothing like anything you'd ever seen before? Dr. Kale felt understanding dawn on her like a cold sunrise. We would think it was an invasion. Earth has been invaded before. Reed said quietly. By our own species, by diseases, by predators. We learned a long time ago that when something unknown shows up, you kill it first and ask questions later. She pulled up more files, images of human warfare. Dr. Kale watched in horror as humans fought each other with weapons that could level cities. Battles that lasted for years, with casualties in the millions. We've been fighting each other for our entire history, Reed explained. Competition for resources, territory, mates. It's what made us strong. When your expeditions landed, we probably thought they were just another invasion attempt, but they were trying to make peaceful contact, Dr. Kale said desperately. How are we supposed to know that? Tom asked. Strange creatures from the sky, using technology we'd never seen before, speaking languages we didn't understand. What would any rational species do? Dr. Kale realized with growing horror that humans hadn't destroyed the galactic expeditions out of malice. They had done it out of the same survival instinct that had kept them alive on the deadliest world in the universe. There's something else, Reed said, pulling up a final set of files. The real reason we left Earth. The images showed a world dying. Oceans turning acid, forests burning, cities abandoned to rising seas. But even in the midst of ecological collapse, humans were still there, still fighting, still surviving, still adapting. We poisoned our own world, Reed said simply. Burned through resources, polluted the air and water, changed the climate. Most species would have just died out. But humans don't give up. We built ships and left to find a new home. How many of you escaped? Dr. Kale asked. Not many. Maybe 50,000, spread across a dozen ships. We were the last one out. Reed's voice was steady, but Dr. Kale could hear the pain underneath. Everyone else stayed behind to keep the planet running long enough for us to get away. The room was quiet for a long moment. Then Kane spoke up, his voice barely a whisper. Your entire species sacrificed itself so a few could survive? That's what humans do, Reed said. We protect our own, no matter the cost. At that moment, Captain Vex's voice came through the communication system. All personnel, prepare for contact. The Galactic Union fleet has arrived. Reed straightened up and Dr. Kale saw the transformation again, from teacher to warrior in the space of a heartbeat. Dr. Kale, Reed said calmly, I think you're about to see what happens when humans feel threatened. Admiral Thane stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Iron Talon, watching the tactical display with cold satisfaction. His gray skin was marked with battle scars, and his red eyes burned with the intensity that had made him the most feared military commander in the Galactic Union. Status report, he commanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had never lost a battle. 3 ships detected, sir, reported his tactical officer. 1 Union research vessel and 2 unknowns. The unknowns appear to be connected by docking tubes. The humans? Confirmed, sir. Heat signatures indicate approximately 800 life forms aboard the smaller vessel. Admiral Thane smiled, showing teeth designed for tearing flesh. His species, the Craxi, were natural warriors who had conquered dozens of worlds before joining the Union. If anyone could handle a few primitive creatures from a death world, it was him. Send the standard demand for surrender, he ordered. If they refuse, we destroy both ships. I will not allow these humans to contaminate the galaxy with their presence. On the bridge of the Harmony's edge, Captain Vex received the Admiral's message with growing dread. He had served under Thane before and knew the Admiral's reputation for solving problems with overwhelming force. Captain Reed, Vex said through the communication link, Admiral Thane is demanding your immediate surrender. He has 5 heavy cruisers and enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Captain Reed's voice came back calm and steady. What happens if we surrender? Vex hesitated. Probably imprisonment, maybe execution. The Admiral sees you as a threat to galactic security. And if we refuse? He'll destroy both our ships. There was a pause. Then Reed spoke again, and something in her tone made Vex's scales crawl with unease. Captain Vex, I want you to know that you and your crew have been kind to us. We won't forget that. But you should also know that humans have a saying. We do not go gentle into that good night. What does that mean? Vex asked. It means we don't give up, even when we're dying. Meanwhile, aboard the New Dawn, the humans were working with terrifying efficiency. Dr. Kale watched in amazement as they transformed their primitive ship into something that looked like a floating fortress. Maya, the chief engineer, was directing teams of humans as they tore apart their own ship's interior. Wall panels became armor plates. Support beams became weapon mounts. Even the furniture was being converted into defensive positions. How are you doing this so fast? Dr. Kale asked Maya, who was welding a piece of machinery that had once been part of the ship's kitchen. Practice, Maya replied without looking up. Humans have been fortifying positions for thousands of years. You learn to work with whatever you have. But you're destroying your own ship. Maya finally looked up, and Dr. Kale saw the same cold determination she had seen in all the humans. Dr. Kale, this ship was our home for 50 years. But a home is just a place. What matters is protecting the people inside it. Across the cargo hold, a human named Ben was setting up what looked like a medical station. But Dr. Kale noticed he was also preparing surgical tools that could easily be used as weapons. Are you a doctor? She asked him. Field medic, Ben replied, checking his supplies. Been patching up humans since I was 16. Earth was a dangerous place, always someone getting hurt. And the surgical tools? Ben gave her a look that was both gentle and terrifying. Dr. Kale, on Earth, the line between healing and killing is sometimes very thin. A good medic knows both sides of that line. Captain Reed moved through the ship like a general preparing for war. She spoke to each human briefly, giving orders in their strange language. Dr. Kale noticed that none of them questioned her commands. They simply nodded and carried them out with deadly precision. "What's your plan?" Dr. Kale asked, when Reed passed near her. "Survive," Reed replied simply. "Whatever it takes." On the Union fleet, Admiral Thane was growing impatient. The humans had not responded to his surrender demand, and his tactical sensors were showing strange energy readings from their ship. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "the unknown vessel is showing increased activity. Multiple power sources coming online." "Weapons?" "Unknown, sir. The energy signatures don't match any known weapon systems." Thane frowned. These primitives shouldn't have any technology that his sensors couldn't identify. "Move us closer. I want a full scan of that ship." As the Union fleet approached, Captain Reed was making final preparations. She stood in what had once been the ship's cafeteria, now converted into a command center. Around her, humans worked at control stations that had been jury-rigged from salvaged equipment. "Maya, status on the weapons?" Reed asked. "We've got 6 improvised railguns using the ship's magnetic containment coils," Maya reported. "Not much range, but they'll punch through most armor at close distance." "Ben, medical supplies?" 15 trauma kits ready. I've also prepared alternative medical supplies in case we need to treat prisoners." Dr. Kale didn't want to think about what alternative medical supplies meant when a human said it. "Tom, communications." "I've been monitoring their fleet communications," Tom said. "They're not expecting any real resistance. The Admiral thinks this will be easy." Reed smiled, and Dr. Kale felt a chill run down her spine. "Good. Overconfidence is always useful." Admiral Thane's fleet moved into attack formation around the 2 connected ships. From his bridge, the human vessel looked pathetically small and helpless. "Open a channel," he commanded. "I want to speak directly to whoever is in charge of that ship." Captain Reed's image appeared on the main screen. Thane studied her carefully, noting the scars on her hands and the cold intelligence in her brown eyes. This was not some primitive savage. This was a trained military commander. "I am Admiral Thane of the Galactic Union Fleet," he announced. "You will surrender immediately or be destroyed." "I am Captain Reed of the Earth vessel New Dawn," she replied calmly. "We are refugees seeking asylum. We have committed no crimes against your Union." "Your very existence is a crime," Thane snarled. "Nothing from the death world can be allowed to live. You are contamination that must be cleansed." Reed's expression didn't change. "Admiral, you're making a mistake. We don't want to fight you. We just want to find a new home and live in peace." "Peace?" Thane laughed. "Creatures from a death world don't know the meaning of peace. You are weapons disguised as refugees." "You're right about one thing," Reed said quietly. "We are weapons. We've been forged by the deadliest world in the galaxy. But we only become dangerous when someone tries to kill us. Threats will not save you," Thane replied. "You are outnumbered and outgunned. Surrender now, and I promise your death will be quick." Reed leaned forward slightly, and her smile became something that made even Admiral Thane feel a moment of unease. "Admiral," she said, "you've made 2 critical errors. First, you assumed that being outnumbered means we're beaten. Second, you assumed we're afraid to die." "What are you talking about?" "Humans have a concept called mutually assured destruction. It means that even if you can kill us, we'll make sure the cost is higher than you're willing to pay." Thane's tactical officer suddenly called out in alarm. "Sir, energy spike from the human vessel. They're powering up some kind of weapon system." On the screen, Reed's smile grew wider. "You want to see what humans are capable of, Admiral? You want to know why Earth is called a death world? You're about to find out." Alarms began blaring on every ship in the Union fleet as the humans revealed what they had built from the scraps of their dying ship. It wasn't just weapons. It was a demonstration of the ingenuity and determination that had kept their species alive on the deadliest world in the galaxy. "All ships open fire," Admiral Thane commanded. "Destroy them now." But as the Union fleet began its attack, Captain Reed gave her final order with the calm of someone who had faced extinction before and survived. "All stations, implement Murphy's law protocol," she said. "Show them what happens when humans get creative." Dr. Kale, watching from her position behind a makeshift barrier, realized she was about to witness something that no galactic military academy had ever prepared their officers for: a cornered human fighting for survival. And despite the impossible odds, she found herself believing that somehow, against all logic and reason, the humans might actually win. The first salvo from Admiral Thane's fleet lit up space like a deadly fireworks display. Energy beams that could melt asteroids lanced toward the tiny human ship. But instead of the expected explosion, something impossible happened. The beams scattered. "What?" Admiral Thane roared from his bridge. "Report!" "Sir, they're using some kind of magnetic field generator," his tactical officer stammered. "It's deflecting our energy weapons." Captain Reed smiled grimly as she watched the enemy fire splash harmlessly against their improvised defenses. "Maya, status on the shield array?" "Holding steady," Maya called back from her jury-rigged control station. "But we can't keep this up forever. We're burning through our power reserves fast." The magnetic shield was a desperate gamble, built from the ship's cargo handling systems and powered by their life support generators. It could deflect energy weapons, but it was draining their ship's power at a dangerous rate. "Tom, any luck with their communications?" Reed asked. "I'm in their network," Tom replied, his fingers dancing over a control panel that had once been a coffee machine. "Admiral Thane is ordering his ships to switch to projectile weapons." Reed nodded. She had expected this. "Maya, drop the magnetic shield and activate the chaff dispersal system." Across the human ship, compartments that had once held personal belongings burst open, releasing clouds of metallic debris into space. The chaff created a swirling storm of reflective particles that confused targeting systems and absorbed energy blasts. Admiral Thane watched in growing rage as his weapons became useless against the primitive ship. "How are they doing this?" he demanded. His science officer, a nervous creature with 6 eyes, studied the readings. "Sir, they're using principles we've never seen before. Their defenses shouldn't work according to our understanding of physics." "They're not using advanced physics," Dr. Kale said quietly from her position on the human ship. She was beginning to understand what she was seeing. "They're using desperation." Captain Vex, who had been watching the battle in stunned silence, suddenly made a decision that would change galactic history forever. "All crew, battle stations," he commanded aboard the Harmony's Edge. "Target the Union fleet." "Sir?" His tactical officer gasped. "You want us to fire on our own people? Those humans saved my science officer's life by sharing their medical knowledge," Vex replied, referring to when Ben had helped treat a crew member's injury earlier. "And they're fighting for their lives against someone who wants to commit genocide. That's not the Union I swore to serve." The Harmony's Edge opened fire on Admiral Thane's fleet, its weapons striking the flagship's shields. The attack wasn't enough to cause serious damage, but it forced Thane to split his attention between 2 targets. "Traitor!" Thane screamed over the communication channel. "I'll see you executed for this." "Maybe," Captain Vex replied calmly. "But first, you'll have to win this battle." The fight became a deadly dance in the void of space. The humans, despite being vastly outgunned, seemed to anticipate every move the Union fleet made. When the enemy ships tried to surround them, the humans used their ship's engines as weapons, creating plasma bursts that damaged anything that came too close. When the Union forces tried to board them, they found the docking ports had been turned into traps, explosive devices hidden in what looked like welcoming airlocks, corridors that had been deliberately weakened to collapse on intruders. "How do they know our tactics so well?" Admiral Thane demanded. The answer came from an unexpected source. Tom had not only infiltrated their communications, but had been studying their battle formations and strategies in real time. "Admiral," Tom's voice came over the Union fleet's communication system, "you're fighting like someone who's never had to worry about losing. Every move you make follows the same patterns. It's like reading a book we've seen before." "Impossible," Thane snarled. "You're primitives." "No." Captain Reed's voice joined the conversation. "We're survivors. There's a difference." The battle reached its turning point when Admiral Thane, frustrated by his inability to destroy the human ship, made a fatal mistake. He ordered all his vessels to concentrate their fire on a single point, planning to punch through the human defenses with sheer, overwhelming force. It was exactly what Captain Reed had been waiting for. "Now," she said quietly. Maya triggered the final component of their improvised defense system. The new dawn had been slowly venting atmosphere and fuel into space throughout the battle, creating an invisible cloud around the ships. When the Union fleet's concentrated energy beams hit this cloud, it ignited. The explosion was visible from several star systems away. 3 of Admiral Thane's ships were caught in the blast, their shields overloaded and their hulls cracked. The flagship itself was thrown tumbling through space, its engines dead and its weapons offline. But the humans weren't finished. Ben, the medic who had seemed so gentle, launched himself in an emergency pod toward the damaged flagship. Dr. Kale watched in horror as he flew straight into the heart of the enemy fleet. "What is he doing?" she gasped. "His job," Captain Reed replied. Ben's pod attached itself to the flagship's hull near the medical bay. Instead of trying to fight his way to the bridge, he headed for the ship's wounded. Admiral Thane and his crew watched in confusion as the human began treating their injured, using medical techniques that were far more advanced than anything in galactic medicine. "Why?" Admiral Thane asked when Ben reached the bridge, where the Admiral himself was trapped, under a fallen beam. "Why are you helping us?" Ben looked up from where he was treating a wounded officer. "Because you're hurt," he said simply. "That's what medics do." The simple humanity of the answer broke something in Admiral Thane's understanding of the universe. These creatures, these weapons from a death world, were risking their lives to save their enemies. Over the next few hours, more humans crossed to the damaged Union ships, not as conquerors, but as rescuers. They shared their food, their medical supplies, and their knowledge freely with the people who had tried to kill them. Captain Vex found himself working alongside Maya to repair his ship's damaged engines. "Why are you helping me?" he asked. "I betrayed my own fleet for you." Maya smiled as she handed him a tool. "Captain, where we come from, loyalty to what's right is more important than loyalty to what's convenient. You stood up for us when it mattered." The aftermath of the battle was unlike anything in galactic military history. Instead of prisoners and conquered territories, there were new friendships and shared knowledge. The humans taught the aliens medical techniques that could save millions of lives. The aliens shared their star charts and navigation data with the humans. When the Galactic Union High Command arrived to investigate the incident, they found something that defied all their expectations. Admiral Thane, the Union's most feared military commander, was working alongside Captain Reed to draft a new treaty. "This is impossible," the High Command representative said. "These creatures are from a death world. They should be destroyed, not negotiated with." Admiral Thane looked up from the documents he was reviewing. His red eyes, once filled with hatred, now showed respect. "I fought them," he said quietly. "I tried to destroy them with everything I had. And when I was defeated and helpless, they saved my life." He stood up slowly, still recovering from his injuries. "These humans are not weapons. They are what we could become if we stopped being afraid of everything that's different from us." Captain Reed stood beside him. "We don't want to conquer anyone," she said. "We just want a place to call home. In return, we're willing to share what we've learned about survival." The treaty that was signed that day became known as the Terra Accords. Humanity was granted full citizenship in the Galactic Union, along with a world of their own to colonize. In exchange, they agreed to share their medical knowledge, their survival techniques, and their unique perspective on problem-solving. The new dawn was escorted to a beautiful world with blue oceans and green continents. As the humans prepared to build their new home, they were joined by volunteers from dozens of species who wanted to learn from them. Dr. Kale was among the first to request a permanent assignment to the human colony. "I want to study how you adapt so quickly," she told Captain Reed as they stood on the surface of humanity's new world. Reed smiled as she watched her people begin building their first settlement. Children were already playing in the alien dirt, and adults were examining the local plants to see which ones might be useful. "Dr. Kale," Reed said, "the secret isn't that we adapt quickly. The secret is that we never stop adapting. Every challenge is just another chance to become better than we were." Across the galaxy, the phrase "humanity fuck yeah" became more than just words. It became a symbol of hope, proof that no matter how dark things became, someone would always be willing to stand up and fight for what was right. And in the depths of space, other ships from other dying worlds began to follow the path the new dawn had blazed, knowing that in this galaxy, there was finally a place for those who refused to give up. The ghost ship from the Deadliest world had become the flagship of a new age of cooperation and survival, and the humans, the last survivors of Earth, had found something more valuable than a new home. They had found a new family among the stars.